Welcome to the DJVonFire podcast. Is it a podcast if it's on YouTube? I don't know. But we're interviewing here, so I am David Joshua Vales. That's where the DJV comes from. My producer now, and we'll see for how is it forever, is my son Jonathan Andrew Vales, JAV. Before I introduce my first guest today, I want to talk about why we even are at this point, or why we're doing this. Number one, I want to get to know as many people as I can this year, both in conversation here, asking them about themselves, figuring things out, but just any way that I can connect with people, whether it be here on YouTube. You can subscribe, get notifications. This is not a job, but every Monday we'll have a new podcast. So just to be informed, follow Instagram, DJVonFire. You can email me, djv@secondplacechurch.com. I just want to be able to connect. If you see me on Sundays and you're like, hey, that's the guy that always used to sit in the back, come on up and talk to me. And I just love to get to know you this year. And that's kind of what the ongoing story will be, because the second reason I want to talk to you is about just a lot of the things that I've learned over this past year of kind of like self-reflection and trying to improve. And I think that I've got things that I could share. I'm going to let my first guest here kind of introduce, and because he's kind of like pushed this narrative a little bit, right? This is Joseph Anthony Dascenzo.
Yes.
My first guest, I should say, JAD.
Yes.
And what you kind of spearheaded this a little bit before we get into our background, but you kind of dropped the word podcast because of a conversation we had.
Yeah, well, because everything that you were doing over this past year, I was like, man, this is so good, man. I'm really just blown away at the process you've been through and everything you've done. And I was like, you've got something to offer people, man. What if we figured out a podcast or something to do with it, you know?
And we're not talking like before the year started.
No.
This literally was like at the end of it, you're like, wow, yeah, we need to tell people.
Yeah, this was like a few weeks ago. We talked about doing this.
So it's not about getting the numbers of a huge podcast. I really wanted to stay local, at least at the beginning, because I want to just get to know the people that I've been attending church with and those types of people first, and then we can always see where God leads. But right now, that's kind of our purpose and our mission. Let's go back, because some people don't know. I mean, I've been at Second Place Church since inaugural
pre-day one.
Pre-day one.
Yeah.
You had a pre-launch date of the 7th. It's always officially February 14th, but I was there before that. But we go back to like the 80s.
Yes. Dude, and what better decade to go back to than the 80s, man?
I mean, now it's not bad to go back to the 80s.
Exactly. Exactly. But we probably knew each other more so because I'm 3 years older than you?
A couple years.
Yeah. So probably
much younger, but
yeah. Probably knew each other more so like in the early 90s, like when Michael Jordan, the Bulls were rocking.
We tore it up on the basketball.
Well, I tore up an ankle every time. You were like my kryptonite, because every time you played, I'm like, I roll an ankle. I'm like, and David just come over to help me. We didn't know each other that well, but you're like, all right, ice it up, get off your ankle.
We need you.
Oh my goodness.
You were always good for a rebound, though. I mean,
I was good for a rebound and a last second three if you needed it with my eyes closed, and it might go in.
So, but that's really how we kind of just got to know each other. Again,
totally.
Maybe a little bit age-wise. You were in college. I was in high school. And then you were doing the family thing. I was in college. Just that 3 years kind of made a little difference, but we just had a contact there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of led us to...
We ended up with the same number of kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a daughter and 4 sons. Or 3 sons. I can't do the math now, man.
Exactly. I've got 3 sons and a daughter.
Okay.
So it's your daughter is the oldest, my daughter is the youngest. So
okay. And luckily for us and for them, they're friends. I mean,
yeah.
As far as
actually,
I can tell.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Let's see. Let's check. What day is it? Yeah, they're friends today. No, they've been friends for a long time, I think.
And I appreciate that, and it makes coming to second place, that much more, worth it, or I think it's a benefit that our kids have been able to have that kind of relationship.
Yeah, and
and grow together.
your kids are a little bit younger, or just a little, not much. But you've got Ethan who's younger, but they've like JAV over here, Jonathan Andrew Vales.
Yeah.
He's basically grown up here.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 years practically. So, I mean, I know you're older than that, but 5 years old when he came, right?
Right. Yeah. When you think about that, it would be going on 11. Ethan is 11. Like he was literally a baby. But
That's right.
all three of them, the three older ones, as well as yours, but like
Yeah, no, totally. Ours too.
each time, just
Yeah.
like growing with it, you see.
We often say we've ruined some of our kids because they don't know any other type of church than
Right.
Second Place. But
Yeah, but I appreciate actually appreciate that as we go. So the reason we're here and the reason I'm talking about the year that I had is because it all started with a video you did in November. Now the series, I went back and looked. The series was called "Change the World in 52 Days." Now it took me 52 weeks.
That's
It took
fair.
me 52
That's fair.
weeks
That's fair.
to get there. You said "Change the World in 52 Days," and your last message was called "Just Quit."
Mhm.
So, in order to change the world in 52 days, his message was "Just quit."
Yeah.
So, but that's not quite what you had in mind when you said that.
Right. Well, it's kind of stems from the whole Nehemiah story where he is the cupbearer to the king, and then he quits his job on the king. Says, "Hey, I got to go back to Jerusalem, help build these walls. This is not okay. It's my homeland." And the king says, "Okay," like, which is kind of crazy, and funds the whole project and all that. So the whole premise was, if there's something that God's calling you to, he couldn't be the cupbearer to the king and go build the walls. He had to choose between one of the two. And so he had to quit something in order to start something. And so that was the premise of that message. And what's funny about that is that I shot that video, and this is how it works a lot of times is I get these ideas about like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I just shot this video and I said, quit this, quit that, quit this, quit that. And I was like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's kind of dumb. But then other times I'm like, yeah, let's just see what happens. And that was one of those days. And I just like shot it. And I was like, I looked back at it and I was like, it's so dumb. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it just seems to be like just driving that point home. And in that message, I actually walked out of the room while that video played. So I'm going to quit talking now and I'm going to go with the kids. And we went back and did children's ministry for the rest of the sermon time. And the video played. And that's kind of where that came from. But it was like, so funny that we're here because of that, because it was one of those ideas of like, I don't know, maybe not. And I did it, and now here we are. So I'm glad I did.
I remember that day. Like I remember, and then I went back and because you have the video on the website,
Mm-hmm.
people can go back and check that out. But I totally remember, and I sat on the back. Right, there's great couches back in the
One of the
warehouse
things I
days.
said was, stop sitting in the back.
Stop sitting in the
Or
back.
quit sitting in the back.
Quit sitting in the back. So I think I looked up from my Bible app being open, and I go, quit sitting in the back. What's going on here? And but I wasn't the only one. You said that you had people quit other things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's somebody that quit their job, like almost like Nehemiah. He went home to his homeland and built a wall. No, he didn't. But yeah, we had somebody to quit their job. Wasn't that day or anything. It was like they finished out the year, and then the new year they basically began a new business and went out on their own. And I was like, hopefully that works out. Like,
and I wouldn't say mine was as immediate because I kind of liked it. I go, that was a different kind of video. Like that was just a different message. I listened to the whole Nehemiah's part leading up to that. Then you just go, I'm going to quit now. And then he walks out of the warehouse, and I'm like, where's he going? And then the lights, I don't remember if they dimmed or you had them dimmed already. Then the video starts, and I sit there and I watch this thing, and he's literally just in his office, and he's talking about quit this, quit that. And it ended, and I go, that was interesting. And that was all I said to myself. I was like, that was interesting. Then I just went back to my normal Monday, and I think that was the first time I saw someone pop in with, I'm tired of this year, I can't wait for next year to begin. And your message came into my head because they were ready to quit that year, and they wanted to start a new year. But I felt like everybody always wants to quit that year and then start the next year, and I thought, I'm going to do it. I'll be the one. I'll be the one that is successful with New Year's resolutions. Do you have people talk to you about New Year's resolutions? Or do you have your own feeling on New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I'm kind of indoctrinated on that. Like, I definitely feel like this is the turn of the calendar is always like a big deal for people. I know that, and one of my hopes is to really help folks kind of get on track this coming year is the fact that New Year's resolutions, I think, like right now, like we're at the end of the year, I think it's like 80% of people that start a New Year's resolution like don't even have it on their radar anymore.
Well, by the time this plays, it'll be the second.
Yes.
Or the third.
Right.
So I hope they've made it.
Yeah. To today. Yeah, true. So maybe it's like the first couple of weeks of the year, yes. It's like everyone's like DJVonFire, everyone's on fire for their goals and stuff. But I think it's creating a habit that's going to continue through an entire year. You really got to be committed, and it's got to be really inspiring. Like it's got to have something. Like it's got to have some oomph to it that says, "There's a real good reason why I want to do this." It motivates me to get up in the morning and to check that box. And what I found, I mean, this is a side note. We can get into it later if you want, but is that to create some grace around those goals and those habits. Meaning that if you are trying to exercise for 30 minutes a day, and you're like, "I'm going to do it every day at 7 a.m." and then you don't do it at 7 a.m., you're like, and you miss because it didn't happen at 7 a.m. The grace is like, well, what if you just check the box at some point that day? You didn't get it done at 7 a.m., do it at 8, do it when you get home from work, whatever it means. So anyway, I think that sometimes people get so hung up on like it having to be this exact thing. And I found that just giving yourself a little bit of some leeway on how you get that done. But the key is not to break the chain, right? So, but it's tough. It's tough, and I think that's what
I went all in.
Was that
I
you
went
did?
All in. I went all in. So on that Wednesday after your videos, I finally go, I'm going to do this. And so after I saw that Facebook post that said, someone said, I'm done with this year. I'm going to wait till next year. I can't wait till it starts. And it's typically the same people every year with the same posts, and it just changed the numbers. And so, and I've never been one to do that. Now I will say I've done some New Year's resolutions, but I said, I want people to be on board. So I said, I put on Facebook, I said, who wants in? Who wants to have it? The best year that's kind of what I call it, the best year you've ever had. And I said, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to do? I just want people on board. I go, I'll message you once in a while, but I'm not going to let you quit. And me helping you stay accountable is just going to be the fire that keeps me. That's kind of where the DJVonFire started. It's trying to keep you involved. It's going to keep me involved.
And that looked like what? Like you put together basically you shot out a text quote every day.
That's how it started. Yeah. So from that date, and I said, who's in? And I got, maybe a handful, maybe 10 when the year started. And when I did that at the end of November, then December, I started just kind of like picking up a book or two. And I'm a math teacher, as you know. I screwed up the numbers on my children, but
that's right.
But I'm a math teacher, so I'm not one to read. But I wanted to motivate myself, and motivation only lasts so long. So it was after I put one book down, I just picked up another book. I just tried to, it said, if you like this book, you might like this book. And I just started to do that. And as quotes started to pop out of the book, I would write them down. And it really was only for me at first, but then I go, hey, maybe in January, to keep people involved, I'm going to start these quotes. I think that's the talk we had at your house.
Yeah.
Right at the end of the year.
Yeah, I remember that.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Throw me on that list.
Yeah.
So I think you were one of the initials.
Yes.
And you made it the entire way, because along the way, some people didn't respond, and it kind of just went the way that it normally goes. But we're ending up with more people. We ended up the year with more people than we even started with.
Well, and I think to clarify, you were sending out a text, and you were also you were doing some things to better yourself, and then you were challenging all of us to do something to better ourselves. And so that's why people kind of were like, hey, I'm out. This might be a little much for me, or whatever it is, season of life. Yeah. And then others were like, hey, I needed to make a change mid-year. They're jumping on board.
Yeah, right.
So
then that's kind of your point about having grace was, so I said I'm giving up pizza, I'm giving up pop, and I'm giving up dessert for a year. That's what I said in November. I said I'm just giving it all up. People go, why would you go for a year? Why not just I go, because I have to show that I can. If I don't, I felt like God wasn't in control of the situation. That literally was in my brain. I go, well, if I can't give up these 3 things for a year, then clearly God must not be the one in control. So that was my motivation. And again, you pull motivation whichever way you want to pull it. But
Sure.
that was a start. And I said, well, let me just start every day. I'm going to send a little quote, and I'm going to just say what the quote meant to me and why I put it in my list. And lo and behold, it went from the first month of January to I had a quote for every day of the year, and I have more quotes than I had. It was unbelievable the way things would bounce off and stick to me, and then how it wasn't just physical, just wasn't getting in shape, but it was trying to be like all aspects of it.
Sure.
Did you pick that up through the quotes throughout the
Oh
year?
yeah, absolutely. Because it's a lot of like mindset, right? We've been talking about be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? So that is a huge part of the equation, is trying to figure out how do I change my mindset to a point where, I don't always feel so defeated, or I don't assume the worst, or I don't, stop trying because something doesn't go my way. It's a lot of times it's like, no, I got to double down. I got to go after it. I got to keep going. And then sometimes just like back off and just rely on God. Okay, like I need you to help me do this today,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for sure, that was definitely a big part of it. Yeah,
You mentioned
the mindset.
You mentioned the challenges.
Yeah.
And I, that was obviously a challenge for me, giving up those 3 big food items.
So clarify just for everybody listening, like you are texting, he's texting this group of like 20 some people every single day in the morning, a quote that you picked up from reading. How many books have you read this year?
Yeah. So this goes from like, if you look at, let's say I've been married 22 years.
Yeah.
I've read maybe 5 books, and it was
in those 22 years.
In those 22 years,
Okay.
I'm not counting the Bible, but like 5 books in 22 years, and it probably was the 5 times I had jury duty.
Yes.
I had to bring something to do. I brought some change for the candy machine, and I brought that. So this year I read over 70 books.
That's insane.
In 1 year, so more than a book a week.
That's insane.
And it was a little bit of fiction, but like self-help and motivation and things on the mind and the spirit and the body and just all those.
So he's texting 20 some people every single day a quote from some of these books, and then he's also challenging everybody to do something that betters themselves, whether mentally, physically, spiritually, whether that's giving up dessert or whether that's exercising or whether that's praying or meditating or whatever, every single day for going on, like it'll have been over a year now. So it's like just so you kind of can wrap your head around that, that's why it stuck out to me. I was like, there he is again. He didn't miss.
People pick up daily devotionals. Some people like those.
Yeah.
And it gets them into their word or whatever.
Sure.
It just gets them their day started. And I was never into those. I pick a few up. I probably got some that are blank on the inside, but I wrote one.
Yeah, basically.
I wrote one, and it was in a leap year, so I have 366 quote, and then I wrote something per quote. So
deep thought.
I kind of like, that's another way you can get, if you want to talk to me, because I kind of like, I typed it all out. So it started as a text message. I'd send it out, and so people would reply to that individually. But I've also put it in a document, and that's actually what's on my Instagram. Like that's the DJVonFire Instagram. Is each day. You can go in now and scroll back, but I'm going to just release it just like I did for people instead of text, so it'll be on the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do each week is just kind of go through this. So January 1 it's day 1,
mm-hmm.
right? That was my first one.
Yep.
And it was dual purpose. It even says that. I have a collection of quotes and thoughts that I'll share throughout this year. This quote is dual purpose because today is day 1, but I want you to think of every day when you wake up that it's day 1. And that really did get me through July,
right.
September.
Yeah.
I mean, some days I had to take it a day. Because if you think about it, like, can you not eat pizza for an hour? Like, we're sitting here for over an hour. Like, I can make it through an hour. Can I make it through 2 hours?
Right.
Yeah. Can I make it till the next meal and have something else? I could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I had to start that way, minute by minute. Like,
mm-hmm.
just get through that hour, that day, that whatever. And then I don't think of it as like, well, now I've got to do it 2 days. No, I just got to do it today. But it happened that I didn't do it yesterday, so now I've done it 2 days.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any fitness goals in January, right? Like that wasn't a goal. I think everybody tries to go to the top of the mountain, and that's not necessarily what has to happen from the get-go. So it's day 1 ended up being kind of like my mantra. I throw that on the end of half the quotes as we did it.
Absolutely. I just to give you an example of like what hit me with day 1.
Yeah.
In January, what I was doing is I took the challenge to fast, and I was going to fast every week. First week, 1 day, second week, 2 days, third week, 3 days.
It's tough.
Yeah. And I was like, so like when you fast for like 1 day, you're like, all right, well, I can get through that. And maybe you've done intermittent fasting and stuff, and it's like, okay, I can get through 1 day. But then you go to the second week, 2 days, you're like, all right, so you get through the first day, and you're kind of like, all right, today's day 1 again. I got to get through day 1 again. And then you get to the third day, that third week, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like you've got 24 hours. Okay, I did that the last 2 weeks, no big deal. 48 hours, like, that was rough, you know. And I actually took notes for my 72 and the 72 hours of fasting, and like hour 40 to 48, I wrote down my attitude is rough, felt pressure for things I need to get done. I was kind of absent. I was kind of like just like kind of almost like zombie, you know. And hour 60, right? Time has slowed down. It's like now every minute is taking forever to get through. Felt pressure. Oh no, not that one. It seems like days are crawling by me. This is both good, like God speak to me, and bad, I'm hungry. Although hunger has been reduced to a dull feeling, if anything at all. And I was also weighing myself through the process, and by hour 61, I was down like 6 pounds, 5.5 pounds. At hour 60, so hour 66, either my stomach gave up or I'm just used to the feeling of being hungry. Also, my hands are cold and my eyes are getting tired. Only 6 more hours.
You're having an experience here.
Dude, I was, man. So I ended at 72. I ended down a total of 7 pounds in 3 days. Ate a homemade sub sandwich for the first thing. I broke the fast on that. And Swedish fish and a few Oreos. I don't know if that was smart, because I don't think my stomach agreed with me after that.
No, you're supposed to ease off of that.
Yes, you
because
are.
You told me about that in January, and then by April, I called it a 48-hour fast, but it's like Sunday night I ate dinner, and then Tuesday I ate dinner.
Yeah.
So that was 48.
Yep.
So when you did your 1 day, was that?
It was like Sunday to Monday night.
Okay.
Sunday night to Monday night.
Okay.
And it would be, mine would have been Sunday night to Wednesday night.
Got it.
It would have been the 72.
So, and I knew how, like, and I did it once per week. I think I did 5 weeks, but
yeah,
you know, I was feeling it. I mean, and that was just once. So
yeah.
I'm sure you were feeling it by the end.
Yeah.
But that was like your challenge for that month.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously fasting food is a big deal, and there's a lot of debate about, you know, the health of that, you know, depending on what you're dealing with physically and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily for everybody, and fasting, you can fast other stuff, but for me, you know, I felt good enough to do it, and it just was kind of eye-opening. And so that was where you're like paying me back for the quit video. I'm like, all right, now here I am doing your thing, and I'm like, ugh, this is rough. Thanks, Dave.
The next quote, so it's day 1.
Yeah.
You kind of like led through that.
Sure.
Start the process, figure the rest out. I think too many people, how would I say that? Don't start the process, or start it and think since they don't have it figured out, they're just going to quit it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted people to know, just start, just take the first step, then figure the rest out. You don't have to have it all figured out. You know, if the day they're listening to it, is past January 1st, and they're like, well, I already screwed up the New Year's resolution. Just start now.
Yep.
And figure it out as you go. And like you said, I did have people jump on middle of the year. They're like, I can't wait, you know. And so wherever you're at, you can start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Day 1.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing with that is, even with like writing the soul workouts, which a lot of people listening might know about, like that all just started just with a couple of things. I was like, well, I'm just going to write this for a friend or two and one of my kids. And, you know, I didn't really have a process figured out. And all of a sudden it kind of just morphed into stuff. And now there's a website, and it's just, yeah, there's no way. I mean, if there's anything we've learned in the last year is like, you can't plan it all out. You just got to like go for it and kind of learn as you go, for sure. I love that quote.
That grace.
Yeah.
By consistently doing things you may not want to do, you create an environment in your mind that says you're okay doing hard things.
Yeah. It's good.
Make a routine for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a routine maker or no?
I think by kind of like,
you've learned?
like, what I would say, unintentionally, I'm a routine guy. Like Sarah would be like, oh my gosh, Joe's a routine guy. Because like I have my regimen in the morning. But I think based on what I do for a living, like it's very random. You know, you get phone calls out of the blue, and it's like, all right, well, we're gonna make a right turn here today, and whatever I had on the calendar is gonna have to change. So it's like this weird like mix of like trying to stay on routine and being flexible. So, but that I don't know. I think that might be good for anybody right now because
Well, that speaks to something that I picked up is that like you need. Someone said it starts with you got to set up the beginning of your day. You got to set up the end of your day.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be like no question. This is how I'm going to start every morning. This is how I'm going to end every day.
mm-hmm.
And then it allows for that kind of randomness
You can break
that
from
will
that.
happen
Yeah.
in between.
Right.
And sometimes you don't have that morning, you don't have that evening, and then that makes dinner awful. Like,
Yes.
when everybody gets home from work, everybody gets home from school, everybody's on their wits' end, and everybody's hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and so you need to set that beginning and that end, and then go ahead, and it helps, because if you don't, then you have chaos from sun up to sundown, and you feel like you're on a hamster wheel. So,
Absolutely.
So I do
Yeah.
like that routine.
No, there's all kinds of research on that. That's proves that out for sure. I mean, routines are amazing, and if nothing else, like I think the guy online, it's always like make sure you make your bed every day because at least you did something, like you accomplished something every single day. So that routine, when you get through that routine in the morning. Like right now, I'm like cracking open Psalm, read a Psalm, then I crack open Proverbs, I read a proverb. Then Sarah and I do a devotion. We have 2 books we're hitting, and then after that, it's kind of like, all right, what are we doing for the day, and kind of like get my day going. But it's just, it's like you've accomplished something. Is the point of making your bed every day. No matter how the day goes, you know that when you come back that night, your bed is made. So
that is one of the books I read, Make Your Bed.
There you go.
From the.
Was he like a colonel or something?
I want to say he was a SEAL or a
general or something.
Yes, and so that starts because that is at least you've accomplished something, and that's what they teach. And one of my biggest struggles is trying to wake up early to work out. I'm one of those. I could figure out the math on when my alarm goes off to get everything done, to get to my house, to get out of my house, to get to work. And so the challenges we talk about, when I got to September, I said, all right, school's starting. All right, I've got to go into work here. And I've got to get out of the bed, and I got to get a workout in. So I challenged myself from September to the end of the year to work out before I leave for school. And so once I said it,
it doesn't count.
Once I put it in that text, that group, like I couldn't back out of that.
Right.
And that was what I found that showed the ultimate reason why I wanted a group of people to be with. It's because if I didn't put it down, because I've said it so many times.
Yeah.
Right? I'm 45 years old now. Like for 40, maybe 24, but for that many years I've said, okay, no, I got to get up early to work out, and then the alarm goes off, and you're like, never mind.
Right.
But as soon as I put it down in that text as a challenge to myself, and with you guys as my witness, and that's really what helped me push through to the end of the year.
It shows you what accountability does, right? I mean, it's just like sometimes you think of accountability as like somebody checking up on you, and then sometimes it's like, well, somebody else knows about this is what I'm said I was going to do. It's like, cool, I like it.
Couple others. What are you doing today to better yourself? That was a big one for me.
Yeah, and that one for me is really good. I think about it as like mind, body, soul. So I try to like get some sort of a, something that's going to educate myself. I'm going to learn something today, whether that, podcast or a book. And then body, I try to do something like exercise wise every single day. And then spiritual wise, trying to do something that way. And then like feeling that progress, just being able to check those boxes, just for me, helps. And then I flip that into what am I doing today to help others out too, which has been kind of like really interesting. How do I, make sure that I remember a conversation I had on Sunday about someone that was asking for a resource or had a question for me for during the week. Did I get back to them, or how can I help them with what they were talking to me about or whatever? So
one of the quotes I have written, I don't know if I used it, I'd have to look back because there was quite a few of them, but one is, you can't have a perfect day unless you've helped someone.
That's good.
And so you can have a good day,
Yep.
but it can't be a perfect day unless you've helped someone. And so that's to your point there with that.
Yeah.
You say mind, body, soul is what you call it. So I pray for my kids. I don't know if JV will remember this, but I always said, bless them, bless Jonathan, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. real fast, those 4 words,
Mm-hmm.
right back to back. Ethan literally like 6 months ago, so my 11-year-old's like, what's that word you say? I'm like, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. He's like, that one, what is it? And then he tries to say it real fast. I'm like, it's 4 words. He's like, no, it sounds like 1 word. It's mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I want God to bless you in those areas and help you grow in those areas.
Yeah.
And so that's your mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
There. Just a different take on
emotions. Well, and emotions are huge. I mean, that's probably the right extra category to throw in there, honestly, with everything that we go through. I think a lot of times we don't talk about emotions enough. They're kind of taboo, and it's like, oh, you shouldn't be emotional. You think emotions, you think, oh, somebody that's always like crying or whatever, and it's not about that. It's about just understand, like, why am I reacting the way I am? Am I actually frustrated because of how the day went? Am I angry? Am I afraid of something? Did I get a bill in the mail that's really ticked me off and I didn't really process that with anybody? It's like our emotions are really playing us big time. So it's good. Yeah, right? I like this next one, though.
I mean, did you want to read that one?
Just shut up and do it.
And so, my first line after that. So it's just shut up and do it.
This is January 6th.
January 6th. I didn't make it very far before I laid that one out there.
Yeah.
It might be the day I lost, if you know.
Yeah.
It says, is it too soon to be so blunt? I think of all the excuses that I've made over the years. Guess what? No one cares about your excuses, and who exactly are you making excuses to? Many of us will officially be back in a routine this week. No excuses, just get it done. So, if this comes out on a Monday, today's the day. Now, it might be like, well, it's the end of the day, or I didn't listen till Tuesday. To me, it doesn't matter. I mean, we always wait for that next. When I did give up the pizza, the pop, and the dessert, I decided at Thanksgiving time. I had Thanksgiving. But then I said, New Year, I can't wait. But then by December 10th, I had already given all 3 up because I'm like, what am I waiting for? Like, just start now.
Yeah.
And some people are like, no, I would have gone to the end of the year, make sure I fill all that in. Like, what? I can't wait. What am I waiting for?
Right.
God can't start now.
Just do it.
Do it.
The old Nike slogan.
So don't let that. Obviously, the new year brings new birth in people's minds, but that could happen anytime, anywhere. So.
Well, and I think we skimmed over January 3rd, which said, by consistently doing things you may not want to do, you create an environment in your mind that says you're okay doing hard things. I think that goes with January 6th, just shut up and do it a lot. And I don't know, I'll call out just anybody out there that's like, oh, well, that's really hard. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's hard because all the easy stuff is what everybody does, and we all know that not everyone's okay. Everyone just kind of like, oh yeah, well, instead of doing what I should do, I'm going to do what I want to do, or I'm just going to say that's too hard, so I'm not going to do it, or I don't want to do that. But we don't oftentimes think about what do we want for our life to look like in a year or 2 or 3, and then what do we need to do to get there? And so, I think that that's a big deal. And to be honest, the honest truth is, like, if you're out there saying it's too hard, I would guarantee you that you're listening to this right now and you're like, I've put off not doing things because they're hard. I know that you can do more than you think you can. You're capable of more than you are, and it's only until you try those hard things and maybe fail, okay, but you probably are further down the road than you would have been if you didn't try in the first place. Is kind of the idea. So I just think back to my life, like I could never stay consistent with exercising ever. And then about 3.5 years ago, like I started exercising for like I said, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's max. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I was like, well, did that for a while. And then I started doing it 5 days a week. And 3.5 years later, here I am. And I'm like, what is the difference, right? And I think what I got like this in my head was that I've always quit this. And it ticks me off. And so I'm not going to quit this time. And nobody knows that. That's something that's been my own personal journey. Haven't ever really talked about it at church or anywhere else. And it's just like, 3.5 years later, feel the best that I've ever felt, and I'm probably the strongest I've ever been. And it's like, I don't really want to talk about that, be like, oh, look at me. But the point of the matter is, like, I prove to myself on a daily basis I can do hard things. And so when I come into a situation that's hard, that's unrelated to that, I'm like, well, I've done this for 3.5 years. I can surely handle whatever is being thrown at me today. So it's like a mental thing that you start to realize that quote from January 3rd, like, yeah, I can do hard things, and you become more resilient, and things come at you. You're like, I'm not going to get taken out by that. I mean, I'm equipped. God's equipped me. I'm going to be able to do this, I've got people around me,
Yeah, that was kind of the doing the hard things. Is when I did the hard thing, then in my brain I would put a check mark, like, you just did that. And we try to figure out like how God talks to us, and it was right or wrong. I won't let you get on your preacher box here at all, but when I'm like, I'm going to run after school, right? And then I'm going to run. I'm just going to run around the block or whatever. I'm going to run a mile. And then I got home and I sat down, I took out my shoes, and I'm like, I'm just going to run the mile. And then it's, part of your brain goes, you should run it. And then how many times do we go, no, it's all right. I'll start tomorrow. Like, I kind of played my mind a little bit that was God saying, you should go for that 1 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be every day that
Mm-hmm.
happens, but,
Mm-hmm.
or like, don't let that voice down this today. I'm gonna let that voice win out on this, like,
Mm-hmm.
And so when I said, you probably should, and then as soon as I did, some people are like, it's always your best run. Like, it does feel that way sometimes. Like, you could, because you went against what you wanted to do, you did
Right.
something hard.
Right.
Now you got a mile in that you didn't have a mile beforehand, and it kind of just sparks it. And so once you do that once, twice, a couple of times, you said you started with 3 days, all of a sudden it turns into 3.5 years, 5 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm sure being active with your kids, you could add up probably 7 days a week.
We played some football on Thanksgiving, and I got some of my kids came at me, and they're grown men now, and they were trying to tackle me, and I was able to defend because we weren't really playing at the time. We're playing a game. It was just all of a sudden like they're warming up, and they're like, let's go tackle Dad, and I was like, let's go. But I think one of the things that I would throw down, this is like no extra charge on the podcast because this is so good if you're listening.
Jonathan, make noise.
Yeah, is that one of the things that I realized, like in the early days when I was exercising and I was doing these workouts, and these workouts would take like an hour or more, and I would literally be so sore the day of and the next day. Like, I was having a hard time walking around. I was so tired. My arms felt like noodles. I was having a hard time getting out of a chair. My legs were so sore. I was so tired. And then I would be the next day, and I would get up and be like, I literally cannot move. Like, I cannot move. There's absolutely no way that I can do another hour and a half workout. And I learned something, is I would go and I would do it. And I would just accept whatever's on the board for that morning. And I would like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And I didn't care if it took me a long, I would start at 6 o'clock in the morning. And if it took me an hour and a half, it's still only 7:30, but I'm like, I'm going to do it. And what I found out is that actually working through the soreness, now this may, if you're a doctor, sorry, tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. But the quote is, you have to work out when you're sore. You have to, because otherwise, if you wait till you're not sore, then you'll work out again, you're going to be sore on that one, and then you're not going to work out. So you're going to have like weeks in between your workouts until you wait till you're not sore. If you work out when you're sore, you actually work out the soreness in the first 10 minutes. And now all of a sudden you're like in a zone where you can actually complete. And that's how you get stronger. And that's how I saw it. And so it's like, people don't want to do hard things. They don't want to work out when they're sore because like, well, that hurts. It's like, right. But if you just stick with it for a second, you're going to be able to do more and get stronger because that soreness is going to go away. So anyway, I think that so many people, including myself, quit too early because it's hard.
Well, that's a great example because I'll call myself an ex-athlete, but being a coach, I know about working through that pain. But this speaks to like, regardless, whatever you want to do, like reading the book, you said you just started the next day. You just started. And if you want to start reading books, if you want to become a reader, then the next day just start reading. Just tell yourself you're going to read a verse.
Yep.
And before you know it, you're going to be like, well, if I could read a verse, I might as well just read a chapter.
Yep.
And that'll kind of get you on your way. So that's just a little...
31 Proverbs, man. There's 31 Proverbs, one a day. You can read a proverb. None of them are really long. You could probably read them in under 2 minutes. It's like you have one. What day is today? Whatever day today is, go to that proverb.
I think it's part of setting up that routine.
Yeah.
Like, choose when you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And this is how I got myself through the year. It's like I just said, I'm going to do this at this time. And then I really didn't let myself go against it. And if that stays with the time for the next month of when you're going to start reading the next chapter, whatever, that's fine. Or you say, I got to pivot here. Maybe I should move this to the end of my day. I can't really fit it in here. But that's fine. But stick with something for a month and then make a change. We don't want to give all our secrets away on the first podcast.
We can't.
The last quote, which goes to all this, nothing feels good about doing nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing feels good about doing nothing. So
yeah, when
I decided on those afternoons do I want to run? No. All right, don't. And then what? Then the day goes by and I go, I accomplished nothing. What did I do today to get better? I didn't run. Like then it strikes two. It's two quotes. I didn't run, so now what? Is that motivation for you?
Yeah. Well, for sure. I think for me with this one, there's something about being able to look back on a day and saying like, this is what I did. And sometimes that is resting. Sometimes that is, as much as you're working out when you're sore, the other thing too is like you've got to rest. And sometimes you got to be like, hey, today I accomplished something. And that was I recharged the batteries. I was able to be present with Sarah and the kids and we were able to see some things done. But I didn't really get anything checked off my work list or, anything like that. But I think the whole point there is that, if you just let your day just kind of like the tail will wag the dog. If you let your day just command itself, you're gonna have a tough time because everyone's gonna demand your time, and your resources, and they're gonna kind of direct you. And if you don't have a plan and you don't really think about what you can get done that day, at least have some target, then at the end of the day you can be like, hey, at least I got that done. And if it's resting, like we've done a couple of times where we're just like, hey, we're just gonna like chill today and we need to like have a mental break, and that's also counts in a sense. So it doesn't always have to be like knocking out 70 things on your to-do list. It could just be something a little bit more manageable on that day. So for sure. Does that hit different for you or is it similar?
Yeah,
just trying to get something done.
Twofold, because we'll wrap it up. That was the last quote for week 1, but twofold. Like you said, you had a work list, you wanted to check something off, you didn't. Okay, but if you ask your question, what did I do today to get better?
Yeah.
Or, how am I improving myself? And you're like, well, that person called and I was able to go help them in their situation. So I may not have checked it off my list, but I was able to do that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Don't be afraid to like accept that as a win, as a plus, as a check mark. If you have fitness goals, right, and you didn't make it to that, but you were able to get stronger while reading your Bible or just reading in general, or that's a win.
Absolutely.
And so any steps you're taking forward, don't just set one and say, well, I want to get better physically, that's it. You talk about mind, body, spirit. I said mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. There's always something to be working on. It's not always here. I may not have taken a step forward here, but I took a step forward here.
Yep. And
all of those incrementals are kind of moving forward. And then the second thing is making that checklist. I always decided whether it was a weekly challenge or a monthly challenge, I decided what I was going to do tomorrow, today.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make a huge list. Wasn't 20 things, but here's the things I want to make sure. I want to make sure I eat this for lunch. I want to make sure I get this exercise in, and I want to make sure I read this. And then whatever else happened in my day, I made sure I checked those 3 things off. And if I didn't, then I stayed up till I got it done.
Yeah.
There would be times I talked to Jeremiah. What's Jeremiah's middle name?
Jeremiah David.
Jeremiah. Oh, all right.
There you
That's
go.
why we have a spirit.
Yeah.
He challenged me for something, and then he's like, I'm doing this. I'm like, I'm doing it too. And and then I get in bed. I'm like, I forgot to do that. So I had to get out of bed, right? Whatever. I think we were doing meditating for a certain amount of minutes.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I have to do that too. And I'm with him. And if I don't, I'm not pulling my part of the bargain. But I told myself yesterday I was going to do that. So I have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why you don't want to set, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow, right? But I'm going to walk around the block tomorrow. I'm going to start there.
Yeah.
And then as you go and as the year progresses, it kind of takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of build up your own challenges. And sometimes you set a goal that maybe is a little bit too lofty,
mm-hmm.
and then you just pivot and you go a different direction. But one of the things we want to do, and as I'm challenging myself to continue this, because I made a joke at the dinner table the other day, I'm like, all right, can't wait. The new year's coming. I'm gonna I'll be able to go back to doing everything I want. And my kids were like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like they know you're not. Like
Right.
it wasn't something I just did for a week and then I'm back to gonna give up coffee for a week and then I start drinking again and now I don't have to worry about it. It was something I did for a year, and it's a new lifestyle. It's a new me, but it's like, okay, from here, where can I go now?
Yeah.
And so, what does the year have? Like new fitness goals, new spiritual goals, new emotional goals, new mental
Yeah.
things, want to keep reading and all those things. Have you looked forward yet to what you're going to continue to do? Or are you just going to stick with?
Yeah. No, I think for sure. I've been looking at some different, programs for physical side. I've definitely, Sarah and I have talked about kind of connecting in with group different people that are in our lives that we want to invest in, leadership and otherwise, family. So we've been working on a kind of a game plan for the new year, and we've been talking about like what's manageable and how do we do that, and really with the intent of kind of helping move people forward. And I got some ideas, that may be in the mix by the time this podcast throws down. That is kind of like hitting on what you're talking about, which is, for those people that are they're done being like stuck, and saying like I want to move, being able to kind of provide some ideas for that, a little bit of more one-on-one stuff, the blanket soul workouts and stuff like that is good, but what I'm finding is that today's day and age, people are just they're in some tough spots, and sometimes that one-on-one time is what they need to kind of be able to process through a couple of things and be like, all right, I want to put a mirror up to myself and evaluate myself in the area of my mental health, my spiritual health, my financial health, my physical health, and say, all right, fair enough, that's where I'm at. Now, what do you want from that? And then kind of move from there. So I don't know what that's going to look like in the new year, but I think that I've already started taste testing, like testing some of that with some individuals, and it's been really good. So I think that I think more and more of us are just kind of like, yeah, you know what? I want to improve. I want to get unstuck. I don't want to be stuck anymore. And I don't have to let the world tell me that I'm stuck. I can still move, even though our world may be a mess, which it probably is.
I feel like you stole my ending. No. But same. I mean, that's kind of, maybe that's what you felt like. Here's a guy that's not got himself unstuck this past year.
Yeah.
And so that's why I appreciate encouragement.
Yeah.
Do you want them reaching out to you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, man.
Joe
at secondplacechurch.com. Pretty easy. JOE at secondplacechurch.com. Okay. Yep.
Myself as well. DJV at secondplacechurch.com. Email me. I can get you that list of the quotes I had last year. I'll send you a whole document all at once, or I can send you it 1 week at a time. If you're an Instagram person, DJVonFire. Those I'm giving out once a day, just like I did for this past year for the group of 20 plus that were doing it. I have a quote from Jim Quick. This is one I used this year, but it's kind of like why this thing is called DJVonFire. It's one life, just one. Why aren't we running like we're on fire towards our wildest dreams? Like, think about that for a second. When you're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or like, this is it. Like, this is the life we get. So I don't care if you're 8 or 80. Like, the time is now to get this thing started. So, Joe, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No problem, man, at all. It's been good.
Jonathan, thanks for all you do.
JAV.